Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today with Stamping and Crafting with Loretta. Of course, I'm Loretta Roger and I am glad you stopped by. Today I have a share for you. I'd like to share with you some artist trading cards, or ATCs for short, that I've made for a swap on the swapbot.com. I will put the information down below in the form of a comment or in the description box. I will also include a link to the website in a comment or down below in the description box. I had to make 10 artist trading cards and or trade 10 that I already had, and I chose to make my own artist trading cards just because there are so many of the ones that I've received recently that I really don't want to give up. So with that being said, I'd like to share with you. And so what we're going to do is, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. And I'm going to share these with you. This one just says, this one is a friend ATC. I used my Sizzix ticket die to make this, and this friend saying is actually stamped on all of these small ticket pieces, which were cut, of course, from Shrinky Dink brand plastic. They were stamped on one side and then they were colored with Copic markers in the other. Then they were attached to my card using glossy accents. I also added 3 small hearts. These hearts were also cut from Shrinky Dink brand plastic, and they are quick cuts. These do need to be finished off, so I'm just going to do that while we are on camera chatting here. Just so that they have a little bit more pizzazz, I'm going to cover the tiles, the tickets, with a little bit of glossy accents. This actually won't take very long to dry, or it might. Today it's kind of humid, so it's one of those, we shall see what happens with it. I do like glossy accents. It adds that look of something being wet when it actually is not, and it just gives it some more interest and texture. If I were to heat set this, it would actually bubble up and add even more fun to the card. If I wanted to, I could also seal down the sentiment, which is the friend, and I'm also going to do that. That way I know it's going to be sealed down to this card and not come apart. I used an old magazine for a lot of the backgrounds of these artist trading cards. I used both some Somerset Studio magazines as well as an art journaling magazine that I have. And a lot of those magazines do come with some free papers, which is awesome. And you can just tear those out of the magazine and use them for whatever projects you like. And that's exactly what I did in this case. So that one's ready to just be put aside. Now the next one is called Glitter Addict, as you can see. Now this cute ATC card features a stamp that I've had for many years, and I was thinking about attaching a small bottle of glitter that is corked to the side over here. I haven't decided if I'm still going to do that or not. If I do, you will see that. Hopefully I will be able to take some still pictures before I send this video up to be posted. As you can see, this piece just got finished right before I shot the video, and therefore it is still pretty wet. Alright, my next card is a friend themed card as well. And I stamped the Friends sentiment onto a piece of pink vellum, and that was then attached to my background, which is actually a piece of fabric that I glued into place. Then I used some distressed crackle paint in milled lavender to create this little accent up here and to edge the card. This card is also stamped with the Stampers Anonymous border stamp, and that was then colored in with a Sharpie marker. The friend word is actually die cut using my Big Shot Pro my Big Shot machine, and a magnetic plate. This is a Sizzix die. I used a small jewel for the dot of the eye. I used a magic marker from Bic, in this case, to color the word friend. That is then sealed down with glossy accents, just to give it a little bit more shine. All of these are on top of a base of light to medium weight chipboard, and they are signed and numbered. This little girl actually was part of a picture in a magazine, and I cut her down to size. I then added my own little interest to her using some fine tipped black markers, and I wrote the word art. I outlined her and then added some stamping, as you can see in the background, with an alphabet stamp I stamped that with Tangelo Memento ink. It was all glued down just using some regular Tombow Mono Multi Glue, my go-to favorite for liquid adhesive, and of course it was set aside to dry. My next one is one that just says, it talks about artist, and I used my Quick Cuts die once again to cut the small hearts. Those were colored with a blue Copic marker, and this one is FBG2, which is a fluorescent bright blue. And then it was colored from the back side and attached using glossy accents. The sentiment that you see shrank here from Shrinky Dink brand plastic is also stamped behind it. That was also stamped onto vellum, that is clear vellum, which was hand torn and then distressed with both some black soot and some Shabby Shutters inks, even though the Shabby Shutters didn't show up. Once again, I used a Stampers Anonymous alphabet stamp in the background. I stamped that with Stays On black ink. The sentiment itself is also stamped with Stays On black ink onto that shrink plastic, cut out and shrank down. I used a scrap, as you can plainly see, of blue cardstock just to layer that on top of the card. It was then sealed down with glossy accents, and as you can see, it came out just adorable. Please excuse my dogs. I am not sure why they think that now is a great time to bark, but hey, I'm rolling the video and that's probably a good enough reason. So I just went back over those with a little bit more glossy accents. Now on to our next piece. This one is a little bit more Halloween based. The card is once again a magazine page that was layered over the top with some sheet music that I printed off onto vellum. Once that came off of my printer, I simply used my heat gun to heat set that, and I used my Little Monster stamp and die from Lawn Fawn to create the focal piece. The wings are cut out of a Julie Netting Prima Doll stamp. This is the wings for the Prima Dolls. That was stamped onto Shrinky Dink brand plastic, colored in with my Copic markers, cut out and shrank, and this is what one of the wings looks like. It's a very simple design. As you can see, they do shrink down quite a bit. So then that was attached with a couple of dimensionals, and I used wiggle eyes on the front. And for my sentiment, I just wrote "Do the Monster Mash," which I printed off from my computer, and I highlighted it with a blue Copic marker. The next one I'm going to show you is also a magazine background. And I kept layering onto the top of this. I used some more of that sheet music that I printed off in vellum, a couple of butterflies that I stamped, and then colored from the other side, shrank them down and attached them to my card. I used purple, blue, and green paint for this. I also used some red. The main image, this kind of face moon, is highlighted with Copic markers as well. Everything was heat set. And it actually, even though it really doesn't show on camera, it does have a very light coat of Mod Podge matte medium over the top to keep it sealed down. And once I heat set it, it did bubble up a little bit, but I kind of like the texture and the look. So here's my next one. And this one says, wake up every morning with the thought that something wonderful is about to happen. And I truly believe that. I think life is very much what you make it. These small flowers are stamped from a Studio G stamp. And it just looks like this. I stamped it 3 times, colored it with 2 separate Copic markers, cut them out, shrank them down, and added them to my card. My card base is once again a magazine, which is a great way to make backgrounds as well as use up magazines that you may not otherwise use, or parts of magazines that you may not use. I used some blue paint. This is from the Master's Touch to add some texture. The arrows are actually a stencil from the stencilgirl.com. The main sentiment was stamped onto a piece of blue, I think it's blue raspberry cardstock from My Favorite Things stamps that was edged with blue paint as well. It was all heat set, and then I glossy accented over the top of the sentiment, and I just sprinkled on a little bit of glitter. I bought a big pack of glitter many years ago, and it doesn't spoil, so and it has a sprinkle top just like a salt shaker does. And so I just sprinkled that over the top while it was wet and allowed that to dry. Now last but by no means, well actually we have 2 more. This one just says, I love rock and roll. I used some charms from my collection, and I cut off the actual charm loops using a pair of wire snips. And these are attached with E6000 glue. The little stones that you see here are actually tiny little stones that they sell for using with Christmas ornaments, and they look like this. I have taken them out of their little packaging because their packaging isn't resealable, and I just put them into a resealable jar, as you can plainly see. And that keeps them neat, and I can just take out what I want. This little star, I kind of thought it kind of went with the, you know, we love rock and roll, kind of sparkly. Sheet music, once again, was cut out of a piece that I had printed off of my computer. Once again, it's vellum, and I just cut that out roughly. I did not pay any attention to whether or not it was straight or not. I just wanted it for the actual look and the texture. The background, magazine paper, once again, decoupaged on top with a couple different inks. I used my alphabet stamp in the background, and this is attached to the front of this card with glossy accents, so it had a nice even coat. The sentiment was printed from the computer and then attached and highlighted with a black marker, as you could see. And then last, but by absolutely no means least, is my favorite of all the ATC cards that I made this time. And this one is just kind of, you know, let your heart take flight, or let your art take flight, I guess, whichever way you want to look at it. And let's see if we can get you in the viewfinder a little bit better. Okay. Once again, I used my Circle G stamp to stamp the flowers. They were stamped 8 times. 4 of them were just colored and cut out, and the other 4 were colored and cut out and actually cut all the way to the centerpiece. So every one of these lines was cut to the center, and then when it was shrank, as it was warm, still warm I should say, I simply molded those up slightly and then attached them to the flat one underneath. They are attached together using E6000 glue, and they are also attached to each other using E6000 glue. Once again, the wings are from Julie Netting, and the Prima doll stamp. Background newspaper. Actually, not newspaper, excuse me. It is, once again, the magazine paper. And it is embellished with the Stampedist background stamp, and then that was colored with a green Copic marker. Everything was allowed to dry and it was set aside. I do not want to do anything else to this card. I really like the way it turned out. And this is one last project I want to show you. I wanted to make a little gift to go along with my altered can that many of you guys have already seen. And this is what I came up with. I used to make these tag books all the time. I don't make them as much as I used to. I'm not really sure why I don't, but anyway. The paper is actually from my collection. It is all retired. It is also all die cuts with a view. Since my actual project was shabby chic / Victorian, I stuck with that theme for my little book, and I'm going to zoom you guys back out a little bit so that you can see the whole thing. Okay, and here's the front cover. I'm just going to do a flip through so you can see this little book. I haven't decided whether or not I am going to actually put some decorations in the binding or not, or if I'm going to stamp this part of the book. Right now I kind of doubt it, only because this really needs to go postal, so I'll probably put some ribbon or something in the ends, but like I said, I'm not sure yet. Still pictures will follow, but it will not be completely embellished in the still pictures, just so that the recipient will have something as a little surprise to look forward to. And I left the back just plain with a little piece of lace. The lace is sponged slightly, just with some distress inks that I have in my stash. I hope you've enjoyed this little overview of projects I've been working on. I hope that you will give artist trading cards and art projects a try. I certainly had a wonderful time making these. Have a great day, everyone. Stamp happy. Be a blessing. I'll talk to you all soon. Take care. Bye for now. Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today with crafting and stamping with Loretta, and that's not going to work because I said it backwards.